I am sitting here with my friend Jon Perdue, and I have told many of his stories. When I was in Grand Rapids last year in 2015, I told them all about his stories that told me. And I put them in my book, always for Judy. But now I'm actually at his very charming house, and I've got him sitting next to us, so I want him to tell the stories live. Now,
Okay.
how old were you when you first knew you liked Judy?
I first knew I liked Judy when I saw The Wizard of Oz when it was first broadcast on TV back in the 50s. We had a black and white TV, so I didn't get to see any of the color portions of it. But that's when I first became aware of her. I don't know that I didn't become a fan at that point, but I first
But you
became
were conscious of
aware.
her.
I was conscious of her
Yeah, I
at
think
that
it's a
point.
very special age, that 7.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so then you followed her, you discovered her movies then, and
Well, it's odd because
when they came on TV? Or?
Many years went by. No, I didn't. I didn't follow her at all until like the early 60s after that, because I wasn't aware of all of her movies back then. I just wasn't into that.
Right.
And it wasn't until I was watching Ed Sullivan in around 1963, I believe, when he had announced next week the incomparable Miss Judy Garland's going to be on the show, and I thought, oh, that little girl that I saw in that movie is going to be on the show.
And then that was the connection.
And I had no idea she'd grown up into this beautiful woman. And I tuned in the next week, and that was the film footage of her in England for the premiere of I Could Go On Singing. So that's when I first.
Then you started collecting her records.
And then I started collecting her
right.
then. Like around 1963, I went out and bought everything I could get my hands on. Clipping photographs, everything.
Right.
But I was familiar with the song Over the Rainbow long before The Wizard of Oz, because my mother had given me one of these little yellow kitty records. So Over the Rainbow had been ingrained in me since I was probably 3 or 4. And I didn't know that Judy sang it in the movie when I finally saw it. So that was a delight too, which established my connection with her.
So you finally got to see her live. Tell me about that.
Finally got to see her live. My mother and I took a bus to New York. I wanted to see her at the Palace.
Where did you live?
I lived in Iowa, in a small.
How long does it take to get there?
It took about a day and a half on the bus. I slept on the bus all night long. My mother was horrified that I was going by myself, so she wouldn't allow that. Yes, so we took the day and a half bus ride, stayed at the Times Square Motor Hotel, as I recall. And I was just fascinated to be there. I couldn't wait to get out on the streets and see the buzz of the city and everything, and especially with Judy right around the corner.
So exciting, right. The whole thing is very exciting.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. I was just beyond myself.
This was the 3rd time Judy had been at the Palace.
Correct.
First time she was there for 19 weeks in 52, yes, after she'd been at the Palladium, and then again, and then this time she had the children with her.
She had her children with her.
Joey and Lorna.
And Liza was there as well, because Judy would pull her up out of the audience just to dance while she sang Chicago, I believe, But I remember laying my eyes on her for the very first time after intermission and sitting through those interminable opening acts. The overture started, and everybody was on their feet. And the spotlight swung from the orchestra to the rear entrance. And I couldn't see anything, but there was just a spotlight moving down, because she was so tiny. I could just see.
She was tiny. She was only 4'11" and a half.
Yeah, and I could just see the spotlight moving, and it wasn't until she got down to the front of the stage and went up the steps that we all could finally see her, and the place just exploded. She just turned around and waved, and it was just electric. It was just amazing.
I remember the first time I saw her at the Palladium, I always wanted to see her in person. And it didn't matter whether she didn't have to sing, she could have just stood there. And I think I actually stopped breathing for so many. I didn't applaud, I just sat there like that was in 1951.
And the whole concert was just amazing, and we've heard it on the record and everything, but it wasn't. My special moment came after the concert. My mother and I stayed outside with about two dozen other people, just milling around the outside entrance to the theater, and because we knew that she was going to come out that way, because there was no backstage door, I believe, for the Palace Theater. Lorna and Joey came out first after about an hour and a half. I mean, we were there a long time. And with Sid, their father, and then maybe 30 minutes later, Liza came out with Peter Allen, and then it waited like another 20 or 30 minutes, and finally the doors burst open, and there was Judy with Sid. No, well, she wasn't with Sid, I don't believe. I can't remember now. It might have been Mark. And she just kind of stood there for a moment to let us all take her in. Maybe she was assessing the situation herself. But the 24 or so people that were there, we all formed two parallel lines from near where she was to the curb where her limousine was. And she walked between the two lines, you know, acknowledging everybody and shaking hands.
She was the queen.
She was the queen, and people were leaned down and kissed her on the cheek as she passed, myself included. I can still remember the smell of her perfume and the softness of her cheek. But when she was right in front of me, I was struck. She is so tiny. She was just so tiny. Now I'm 6'1", and here she is 4'11". But she worked her way to her car, to her limousine, and got in. And I remember as the limousine rolled away, she turned around, she twisted around to the back window and just waved and smiled at all of us. And just,
very sweet.
Yeah, it was a magical moment.
Well, I think these stories tell you what she was like as a person, because there's some sensational stories about her, but she wasn't like that. And this is in my book, Always for Judy. And when I met Jon, and he gave me this long write-up of it, and I thought it was so beautiful that I've included it in the book.
Well, it was a very special time.
Yeah.
Never forget it. She changed my life.
Right.
She did.
It's quite unbelievable, and thank you for telling me.
You're welcome.
And everybody else.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rob.